Welcome, distinguished ministers and guests. The topic for our panel this morning is ICT investments for education. African governments are making considerable investments in national transformation projects in education with very strong ICT components in those. And during this panel, we're going to get the opportunity to discuss and get best practices and insights from some of the countries who've already embarked on some of these projects. So, starting off with South Africa and Minister Pandor, welcome. You are now in charge of science and technology, but previously you were the Minister for Education, so the use of technology to enhance learning experiences must be near and dear to your heart. So we'd love to get some of your views on that, and indeed how the rate of change for ICT is very fast, and how do you make the best decisions for solutions for South Africa?
Thank you very much for the question and opportunity to be part of this panel. I wish to join colleagues who spoke earlier in thanking Minister Aleppo for hosting us so wonderfully during this summit. With respect to investment in ICT, South Africa adopted a white paper on e-education in 2004, which was accepted as the policy guide of government in implementing e-education in South Africa. Significant resources have been devoted to connecting schools, as the Deputy Minister indicated earlier, and of course we've had teacher development. We've had very positive support from the private sector, and I think since the adoption of the white paper in 2004, a large number of lessons have been learned as to how you most appropriately deploy technology, the form of technologies that you should utilize, and given the wide presence and use of mobile telephony in South Africa, we've actually, as part of the e-education, made increased use of mobile technology as a resource for education. We found that mobile technology is a very good way of reaching young people. Young people develop very exciting apps for learning. Mm-hmm. So from my perspective as Minister of Science and Technology, competence in maths and science are very, very important. And we've used mobile platforms as a means of having young people reach school children as tutors in higher education to kids in school. So that's been a really exciting development, and it's primarily managed by young people. With respect to schools, it is provincial governments that are responsible for implementing the e-education strategy. And the strategy is agreed across provinces as a national program for implementing e-education. And I think more and more of our schools are getting connected, more young people have access to technology, but the challenge is still those who are most disadvantaged and marginalized, particularly in the rural, poor communities. So I think there's a lot of work to be done there. As for young people in the urban setting, they're far more connected, they have access to the best technologies, teachers are clued up, they have their own technology resources. So the real challenge is how you reach the most marginal and vulnerable.
Great, thank you. I think you're right. There's some great best practices coming out around the use of mobile technology, especially when it comes to STEM and mathematics. So thank you for sharing that. For Uganda, entrepreneurship is high on your agenda. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing to proactively encourage entrepreneurship and the need for innovation that can contribute not just to education, but also to the economy as a whole?
Yeah, thank you. Well, that's a very broad question indeed. Mm-hmm. As you're aware, I was a bit ambushed. My minister just lost a relative, and I thought this morning to come and participate. So I'll give you my views.
Please.
As I come from the Ministry of ICT, and of course ICT goes together with innovation and entrepreneurship. But as you know, in the third world, we are more of net consumers than the real innovators. Technology comes from outside. But on the last 5 or so years, we have seen movement in our universities, whereby research is taking root. We have some of our young people coming up with very, very interesting innovations, which are relevant to our local needs. And that's quite encouraging. So our role as government is to participate and encourage them. In the case of Uganda, we have one of our regulators, Uganda Communications Commission, who carry out annual award ceremonies. So we get these young innovators and have a ceremony where we pick the best guys and give them a prize. And that encourages others also come in and compete the following year, consequent year. We also just don't look at UCC. We participate with other. We go to the universities. For example, we went with in a partnership with one of our universities, Makerere University, to set up there together with Microsoft in kind of innovation center. So we look for those partnerships, especially with those big corporates, because that's where these are eventually the consumers of those innovations. So even in our policies, we have specific pronouncements about what we need to do about promoting innovation, and so it's quite on our agenda, and I don't think it's just unique to Uganda, because I see it also in our neighboring countries like Kenya and Rwanda. We are on the move. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. I'm going to move this. Next to Rwanda, Dr. Celestin. Last year, the minister announced at Innovation Africa in Rwanda the building of a devices assembly plant. And I know there's a lot of discussion about this yesterday. Can you maybe share with us the progress on that project, and also how you're moving forward your holistic education transformation project?
Thank you. Thank you very much. First, allow me to thank the government of Uganda for the organization of this conference. And allow me to say that Honorable Minister of Education, Dr. Papias, requested me to attend this conference because he was at the last moment called for other duties. Concerning the project you are talking about, already the factory is in place. It is operational, and it has the capacity of producing 12,000 laptops per month, with the capacity of increasing the possibility of increasing the capacity of production. And as you know, the government of Rwanda has identified the ICT in education as a priority area towards building the knowledge-based economy, as expressed in our Vision 2020. We have already distributed 1,000 laptops in primary schools through the program One Laptop Per Child. But actually this year, we found that by distributing laptops, 1 laptop per child in primary, those children are growing and they are going to secondary and university. And we have revised our policy concerning the loan scheme for the higher education students to make sure that every student coming to higher education is equipped with a laptop. And these laptops will be given as a loan, like the government is supporting a student through the loan scheme, to make sure that one laptop per child is not just for the children, but it is at all levels of education. To support those initiatives, also we have developed the ICT in education policy, supported by its implementation strategic plan called the ICT Master Plan. And actually we are thinking to support, because the problem is not only to make sure that these children or the student has laptops. We need to make sure that are used. Because of that, the government have invested a lot in power supply, networking, and providing the servers in schools so that these laptops could be used. We are supporting this also by a teacher training program where we make sure that teachers at all levels are trained so that they can support students. Yeah, concerning the question you asked about the factory, as I said, it is operational. It has the capacity of producing 12,000 per month, and we are thinking about not only Rwanda but also the neighboring countries. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there'll be a lot of interest from other countries on how you progress with that, and for sure, not just looking at the device, but really looking holistically at the teacher professional development, and all the other elements are going to be critical to success. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Next question is for Dr. Kibga from Tanzania. Can you share with us a little about how you're advancing equality in education through investment in ICT in Tanzania, and specifically through the use of mobile technologies and cloud solutions, as well as localized content to really enhance the quality of literacy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me join others also to thank our neighbor country, Uganda, for making this beautiful conference happen. But again, I take this opportunity also to apologize for my minister who was supposed to be here, but for unavoidable circumstances, she has not made it to come. Yeah, equality of education in general in Tanzania is considered in various aspects, including geographical issues, because Tanzania is too wide, but larger part of it is not populated, therefore people are scattered all over the way. And also it considers the issue of people who need some special needs, and as well it has something to do with the gender, because you see, like, women are not considered to have education so much. Now, these things have come up with the various circumstances which hinders even ICT penetration in the villages and in the local areas. Now, to make equality of access, Tanzania has tried to ensure that schools are having electricity through rural rectification scheme, but also using other various sources of energy like solar power, generators, and wind power. Now, the statistics for school connection is not very well as well, because once the project can bring electricity to a particular point, there must be a last mile connection, which also needs some sort of funding. And most of the schools, over 60% of the schools, are community schools, which are built by community, but also owned by the community. Only that government is supporting with teachers and all those things. Now, to assist the government to assist equality all over that scattered schools, for some years now, there is broadcasting of primary school lessons all over the country twice a week, so that students in the local areas can also access some important educational issues through radio broadcast. But recently, the government has established the mobile technology whereby primary school teachers who are in remote areas can be able to request for a content through mobile phone from the national server, and that content can be deployed using a local TV, and through that local TV, student can learn, and the teacher can integrate whatever they wanted to integrate in the teaching and learning process. But the training of teachers is paramount in this area, so that the teachers in those local areas where ICT is difficult to reach to them can be taught on how to use offline materials like content saved in the CDs to be used to teach the students. And recently, we have developed a retooling project for science and mathematics teachers, whereby we customized the Moodle learning management system to develop content using subject matter experts and IT experts all together coming up with the content. That is aiming at addressing what is perceived by the teachers as difficult topics. And this really has been very successful because teachers are using that to help a student in the place which was difficult to them. And lastly, we have employed video programs whereby, like teachers who developed in the environment where there is completely no laboratories, then we can put somewhere few experts and record the way they were, the practicals, for instance, are supposed to be done. And those videos can be put into CD and you see distributed all over the country. And so the teacher who didn't have any skill in the practical work can use the video in the lab and follow the teacher who is in the video and come up with the clear understanding of what is supposed to be done in the classroom. And after that, they can do it several times and they become expert in that way. So there are different initiatives which are put together to ensure that there is equality of ICT provision in the country, irrespective of circumstances, which makes the differences between one region and the other.
Great,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Some other great examples of the use of mobile technologies to reach those remote areas, as well as the importance of teacher professional development and using technology to reach those teachers and train them. So thank you for sharing that. Mr. Van Vick from Namibia. In a recent speech, the ministry stated that you had an enlarged structure to include ICT competencies, allowing for the expansion of ICT through community libraries and other such resources. Do you see this community approach as giving broad access to information technology and connectivity as a better solution than other programs? Maybe push the red button if it is. Yeah, I think you're on now. Should be on.
Hello.
Maybe try.
Good morning.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
I would like to thank also the government of Uganda for the invitation, and we are much obliged. I have to apologize for my honorable minister who cannot be here this morning, and as you have noticed that she sent an apology. First of all, when Namibia engaged on this ICT education initiative many years ago, we had also a holistic approach specifically, but we had to actually stage and time our intervention specifically because of issues on infrastructure that we had, and if you tackle all the components for a successful implementation in ICTs, you will never have the funding for that specifically. So what we have done is that public access to ICTs is one of the approaches that we've also have identified some time back, but we had to stage it such that if we have gone to the stages of making sure that there's connectivity in the country, there's connectivity at these libraries that we have looked at, this is the time when the intervention will start at libraries, for example. We also have universities, we also have campuses of education, we have schools of education, we have got these resource centers. All of these institutions has to be tackled. And so it's not that the approach for public access to ICTs is replacing. It's just one of the components that we have to serve and to make sure that we have responsibility as a ministry in total to train from cradle to grave. It means that we have formal education and we have lifelong education as well. So this is why we are making sure that our communities access our libraries. We put in infrastructure into those libraries. We put in internet connectivity in those libraries. We put in IT equipment in these libraries, and we support these libraries specifically. So we also have huge influx of SMEs. So what we have is that some of these libraries, these SMEs people are using to come and do printing of the proposals, and then we also have certain workshops that is gathered and done at this libraries as well. And this is making sure that the community can also then access services, because most of our government services, as we are all striving for e-governance, is coming closer to the people. And what in the public access is through our library specifically. And this is why we are not getting it more important, but it's one of the important milestones that we have to achieve.
Sure, sounds like a great initiative, both focusing on lifelong learning and supporting that, as well as fueling some of the economic growth through SMEs. So thank you for sharing. We will come back to Minister Pandor from South Africa. In a recent departmental speech, you referred to future employment through innovation. Can you share with us how you support technology innovation, and perhaps a little bit on your technology internship program?
Well, there are a range of measures that we've put in place to support technology, innovation and technology development in South Africa. I spoke yesterday about this importance of an innovation ecosystem, that you need a set of institutions that work together in a very connected way to deliver a commercial product out of research, so to support the creation of a knowledge economy. We have universities that are very competent in research, but the gap has been the conversion of the knowledge produced in universities into commercial product. So we've had to establish a range of institutions. For example, we've now created a technology innovation agency whose role is to identify where there is value in publicly funded research and to support researchers up to the end stage of innovative product. So they would assist them with company formation, patent registration, all the legal processes, as well as grant making leading to the commercial product out of research. In the space of technology, there are a range of areas in which we're active. We've established what we call technology stations at all campuses in South Africa, university campuses. And these technology stations are available to small, medium-sized, and micro industries that would not have easy access to high-tech equipment for a range of business needs. So they can approach any of these technology local stations and get the necessary support from them. We also have a number of large infrastructure projects as South Africa that are being implemented, be they expanding the railways, building new carriages for the new railway lines, and a range of other infrastructure initiatives. we are very keen to see small and medium-sized industries take up the opportunities in those big national projects. Now, what we've had to do is provide them with access to the necessary technology so that they can become contractors to these bigger programs. We've established simulation networks so that small enterprises have access to 3D technology, which is very important in engineering, design, and so on. And they wouldn't always have that technology available to them. So we've had to invest millions in putting up equipment in our various tertiary institutions, as well as in the private sector. And we've seen the emergence of new young entrepreneurs who are engineers, who are technologists, and who are now able to actually submit a very good proposal to a large state corporation or a multinational and become one of the contractors for major innovative programs in South Africa. So the experience is that as a department, you cannot neglect the need to ensure that you invest both in human capital development, but also in the provision of the necessary technology equipment, which makes your private sector and your small and medium sector much more competitive than it would be without the innovation support that you provide.
Great, some great initiatives focused on really supporting the whole knowledge economy and entrepreneurship and small business within South Africa. Dr. Turahi from Uganda. In Uganda, you have the CDF fund, a Universal Service Fund. Can you tell us how the Ministry of ICT and the Ministry of Education prioritize which education projects to utilize for these funds?
Thank you. Yes, this CDF is a program we started way back in 2003. It stands for Rural Communications Development Fund. The principle is very simple. We collect 1% levy from the the gross revenues of the operators to contribute towards this fund. And why do we collect it from the operators? Because there are areas of the country where they didn't want to go under the pretext that they were not profitable. And as you've been hearing, most of our people stay in rural areas. 80% of Ugandans actually in rural areas, and those are the areas which are not profitable. So imagine the kids who are in those areas who also need to access, have the same access like the kids who are in urban areas. So that we were kind of saying, let's have this fund so that we can go to those places where you guys don't want to go. And initially, of course, around 2003, it was all about telephony, voice telephony, basic connectivity. The issues of data connectivity hadn't yet come in. So with the time, around 2006, we started having programs say we need to connect our schools to the internet. I mean, they don't need voice, they need internet, because that's the only medium we have to deliver content. Radios have been mentioned and TV and all that, but with the internet, you can create a classroom and do a lot of things within that classroom. So we started programs of setting up computer labs, and we targeted secondary schools. To date, we have actually connected all government secondary schools. They have computer labs. The challenge has always been, Uganda is landlocked, unlike the South Africas and others. The sea cables somehow pass around the coastlines, they don't enter. So we get very high, our bandwidth is very expensive. We are always haggling with the question of how do we bring the cost of bandwidth down. Recently, again, there were some new developments. We got some cables running on the East African coast, and the price of 1 megabit came down from about $4,000 per meg about 8 years ago to about $300 today. So that has kind of now been very encouraging. We are delivering better internet to the schools, but that was just connectivity. However, to partner with our Ministry of Education, because the issues of education policy, and if you want the ICT curriculum, that's their docket. So we have an MOU with the Ministry of Education to help us work together. So they're the ones actually who tell us what to do, where to go. So we deal with the issues of technology and connectivity, and they deal with the teaching side, the curriculum, the policy on education, and more recently even content, because educational content delivered via this medium. Someone has already mentioned maybe about cyber schools or that kind of technology where you have like simulated labs or content that is very interesting for the kids. So that is in their docket. So we work together, we collaborate closely. So when we're coming in the next financial, right now, maybe just to summarize, we have had 2 5-year programs running for this RCDF, and we are concluding the latest one. We are reviewing what we have achieved so far, and we intend next year to launch a new 5-year program. And I think we are going to be looking at things like latest trends, like we are seeing around here from these big players. So are we up to date? How do we compare with other countries? We're going to be looking at that, and also look at lessons learned from previous interventions. That's what we're doing.
Great. We look forward to hearing about that program next year at this conference. Thank you. And back to Dr. Celestin from Rwanda. In Rwanda, you established the Innovation for Education Fund to promote innovation in the education sector to boost Rwanda's quality of education. In a speech this month, you talked about scaling up this fund and scaling up these initiatives. Can you tell us what that means for Rwanda?
Yeah, thank you. In Rwanda, for the last 3 years, we had innovation for education and the innovation capacity for education. It was a pilot project for 3 years supported by DFID with a total budget of 12 million of pounds, which is equivalent closer to 12 billion Rwandan francs. A total of 26 projects were implemented, and within those projects there are also some projects related to ICT and the use of ICT in education. Actually, it is ending this September, meaning next week. And yesterday and the day before yesterday, we had a concluding conference of 2 days where the fund manager was going to present a final report with recommendations of how those 26 projects went. Our counterparts, because each project had a counterpart within the Ministry of Education and the implementing agencies, are going to present with concrete recommendations. Maybe not all of the 26 projects will be scaled up, depending on the recommendations, but the government of Rwanda and the development partners, we are committed to scale up those projects depending on the success. But in general, the pilot project went very well. There is evidences where it was very well, and we think it will be scaled up.
Okay, great. We look forward to hearing more from those projects. Next to Dr. Kibga from Tanzania. Measuring impact of on education, on outcomes in education from ITC investment is always a hot topic. What measures have you put in place in Tanzania to assess the impact of such investments, and specifically any solutions you put in place to monitor that impact on learning outcomes?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Impact in education investment is a long-term business. It is not something which you do it today and just assess it tomorrow. Now, Tanzania embarked to ICT not very long time, maybe 3 to 4 years ago. But to ensure that resources invested in ICT bring the required and the necessary change, the country or the government decided to embed ICT in every area of teacher professional development program, including pre-service programs. Therefore, from like primary to up to university, again, ICT is part and parcel of the teaching and learning process, but also it's a subject of its own. Now, to ensure that this is happening, then the assessment of ICT component is done in the same way as any other subject. For instance, the teacher who is doing like diploma in education, he is supposed also to do ICT content part, but also pedagogy part. And therefore, after graduation, these teachers will do like a survey to find out what is happening in the field of work. How do the teacher come who graduated from this field work in different from the old ones? So here now is where you see that the teacher who were brought up in ICT environment, then he is doing very well. He's integrating ICT in teaching and learning process. He can download materials from the websites and enrich the student content. And really, even the performance of the student is becoming up because of that input. So if the teacher is continuing with the traditional way of teaching, then there is also assistance on that, where now the government has established a national in-service training program to ensure that also the teachers are doing very well, those who have graduated in a few years ago. And the assessment of this is benchmarked to UNESCO's Teachers' Competence Framework, which are in place, but also adopted to meet Tanzanian context and Tanzanian needs. Therefore, the assessment procedures are assessing to that standard to see whether the teachers are really having that knowledge to make the teaching and learning process becoming a different now in ICT era. And it is quite better that through CEDA assistance, all government teachers' colleges are connected now. They are well facilitated with the ICT equipment, but also the tutors were trained to ensure that they can make up the teacher trainees to acquire these innovations very well. And now that is one, but in the working place you can see things which are happening. Like now, you can find 100 or 200 teachers having groups in group emails, exchanging ideas through emails, but others are using Facebook, they're using WhatsApp to discuss issues around academic areas. And this has become a very powerful tool for uniting teachers together who have been scattered all over the country to discuss some academic matters and really improve themselves in various ways. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to Namibia and Mr. Van Wyk. In a recent speech, you referred to the priority of infrastructure development for Namibia. And with reference to information technology, you stated that computers could be provided to schools by a Friends for Education program. Can you share with us a little bit about that program?
Thank you for the question. Madam Chair, The Friends for Education, what we refer to is, actually say, the long-standing partners, the multi-partners that we had, the private sector, local international partners, all of the businesses that we have basically supported us since our first intervention in terms of ICT in education. When we started off with our policies and plan for implementation in 2007, we already had multiple partners that were supporting our project, not a project, but our initiative in education. At that time, we called it the Kibga, which was the Orange Revolution, and a lot of the partners joined the revolution at that time. Needless to say that over the time that we have been engaging in this holistic rolling out of training, capacity building, equipment to schools as well. It has been a very steep learning curve for us as well as Namibia. And sometimes it didn't go well, but these partners have stuck with us. And they have basically held our hands during this time as well. So the minister was referring specifically to these partners, and because they have these partnerships have just grown. They has basically exceeded our expectations. We have basically revised our responsibilities towards each other. We have engaged in new other modalities and partnerships over the time as well. There was some investments made from both sides as well. So the program, basically, what we're looking at is for the development of ICTs to happen, because it is a national agenda. It is part of our national agenda. So even countries, which is very friendly to Namibia, is also supporting us in terms of the development partners and donors that we're having as well. So since we know that the investment that we are making in terms of ICTs in education, your biggest investment is not in the equipment. Your biggest investment is to make sure for the readiness of our curriculums, whether it's at a pre-primary level or at higher education level, to make sure that our teachers who enters the teaching market or the schools are already equipped with those skills. And as our colleague just mentioned, to have the pedagogy of ICTs, how they teach with those technologies, because there are schools with these technologies. We also make sure that connectivity is a reality. Most of our schools are still suffering with issues on power, specifically power. And so we engage also on that front as well. So to have all these fronts covered, it's making sure that the schools are ready to accept these technologies. We also know that, for example, teachers that leaves university to teach in schools and already have these ICT skills will create that demand for the deployment of that equipment to that school. And this is what we want. We want the school to tell us what they need, and not just we pushing in computers to the schools and they don't embrace it to make sure that basically teaching is happening with these technologies. And these partners have been long-standing, and I know they are visible here. There's the Microsofts, there's the Intels, there's the Samsungs, there's the Computer for Kids. All of these partners which are currently here in this event here have been with us for multiple years as well. And we want to thank them as well from this podium because they have been great to us. And what we're saying that we hope that we will just pursue this for higher grades for Namibia. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And you're absolutely right. It has to be a multifaceted approach, looking at pedagogy, curriculum, professional development, and connectivity to make sure that these projects are really successful. So thank you for sharing. I think we have time for one last question. So we'll finish with Minister Pandor from South Africa. You also have responsibility for the Maraka Institute, which develops ICT interventions for the needs of education. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, Maraka is an agency that is located in our Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. Its remit is to promote research with industry into technology development. They work primarily with postgraduate students and serve as well as our research support when we devise solutions for schools or support to universities. They also manage our South African Research Network, which is a research network we've established connecting all tertiary institutions and science councils in South Africa, and connecting to research networks in Europe, the Americas, and so on, to allow open access to journals and other knowledge sources that academics and researchers may need. In addition, Miraka is overseeing a newly introduced program, a data-intensive research initiative of South Africa called DERISA, which is aligned to the big data development work that is being done with respect to the Square Kilometre Array, which is a major global infrastructure radio telescope, a project that requires forms of technology that haven't been devised as yet. So Miraka would be a lead agent in supporting South African institutions and the Square Kilometre Array to respond to the needs of the radio telescope. Miraka plays an extremely important role. They do so alongside the private sector. Many of the companies present here work with Miraka. They also support young people and help us to produce our masters and PhDs, and would identify programs that young people can enter. But also at the other end, they work with our innovation hub in Gauteng, which manages a mobile laboratory that goes out into townships and rural communities to help young people to come to grips with mobile technology and opportunities for applications development. So Miraka would house a lot of the team that would work with the mobile laboratory. It's a very important institute, doesn't only work with science and technology, works with telecommunications department in the research domain, as well as the communications department in South Africa. So I think Miraka has just amazing capacity, and we're very fortunate to have such an institute. But of course, we're lucky in that we have a Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, which is extremely capable. It's 70 years old, the oldest science council in South Africa, and so has huge capability to support technology development and technology research in South Africa.
Sounds like some very important and impactful work being done by the Institute. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you to the Minister and to all the distinguished panelists for their insights, their best practices. Hopefully you all got some good sharing from this session, and I'm sure the panel will be open to answering some questions throughout the next few days at the conference. So thank you again very much. In conclusion, I'm going to share just a video. We've done a lot of talking about the impact of ICT in education, and one of the projects that I'm going to share with you is a project from Tanzania, which, to refer to the Minister's mentioning of the importance of STEM, or science, technology, education, engineering and maths, this project really focuses on the use of mobile technology and Microsoft Math to really bring great learning experiences to students. And honestly, it's inspiring for me to see the joy that using this technology brings to the learning experience for these children. It was done in partnership with Microsoft and a telco, Tico, so that the access to the data is zero rated or no cost when they use this technology via their mobile phones. Again, some amazing educators, and a lot of what we talk about is really brought to life by these extremely motivated and empowering educators. So a great solution that we will share with you, and it's this is from Tanzania, but it's also, the service is also being used in South Africa as well as Namibia as well. So I hope you enjoy the video, and if you've got any questions, please do contact us. Thank you.
In all my life, the most part I've been hating maths, It's kind of hard for me. But with this program, I can make it makes mathematics easier for me. That's why I like it.
Microsoft Math is so nice a program, a platform which is very interesting to the students. They like it, they love it, they practice maths.
I view it as a new innovation which intend to integrate in technology in teaching and learning mathematics.
You know, the best thing about this service is that it's not in books like the way we are used, it's in online. You know, most of us teenagers, we like using phone, internet and all that.
I use it with my friends, not only at school, but at home. I've shown them how to use it and they are so glad. Now it's like our game, we just compete with each other there.
I have full access anywhere I want. Anytime I feel like now I want to solve questions, I can take my phone, I can solve them.
Now mathematics is like my friend, so that is my biggest achievement so far.
The best thing about this service, it improved my knowledge, it add more technique. In my national examination, I use the technique which I get in the mathematics service to answer the question.
My experience on the Microsoft Mathematics learning in Tanzania in secondary education is that this kind of innovation is one of the priorities in the government or in the ministry of addressing the teaching and learning mathematics in secondary schools.
I want to be an accountant because I just like it. It's my hobby. I like counting, you know, counting money, issuing money and all that. Just the thing of counting maths and all that, yeah. I love it. So I want to work on a bank, being an accountant.
It can help their learners. Also, it can help the teachers because the teachers can use the service to get materials or to learn more skills and knowledge. We have a lot of students in the class. By using this service, it's helped me organize the students in groups.
For me, through Microsoft, I live with Microsoft Math. I learn to be problem solver. That make me proud of it. I feel happy. I feel confident.
If you try it, you can learn more, and if it has worked on me, it cannot work on every other student.